Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, President Bongbong Marcos says the Philippines will not allow offensive operations from the 4 new EDCA sites. The Senate will get to the bottom of the assassination of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo, and the Bureau of Immigration is requesting for a probe into the possible involvement of airline personnel in human trafficking cases. Senator Risa Hontiveros joins us live. President Bongbong Marcos stresses that the military bases that host American troops and logistics will not be used as staging grounds for offensive operations. This comes after China claimed that the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA sites, are a threat to regional stability. He says the 4 additional sites will help the Philippines strengthen its defense capabilities.
Kaya't kung wala namang sumusugod sa atin, hindi na sila kailangan mag-alala dahil hindi naman sila natin lalabanan. At hindi naman, ang ginagawa lamang natin ay patuloy natin na pinapatibay natin ang depensa ng ating teritoryo.
Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Deputy Senate Minority Leader Senator Risa Hontiveros. Senator, welcome back to the source. It's good to see you again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pinky. Good to see you too. And happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you too. Let's take off from the new EDCA sites, the 4 new ones. Your first reaction now that we have an additional 4 sites. They've been identified, 2 in Cagayan, 1 in Isabela, and the other one in Balabac, Palawan. On top, of course, of the 5 EDCA sites already in existence. Number 1, do we really need these additional EDCA sites?
Well, of course, in general, hindi lang naman EDCA, Pinky, ang tanging solusyon, no, sa ating mga problema. And after all, the issues in the South China Sea involve more than just the US and China. And the disputes in these waters shouldn't be settled only or even primarily by these 2 giant countries. Additionally, no, bilang Pilipinas, hindi tayo dapat pumayag na maipit lamang tayo between 2 warring hegemons, again, China and the US. And instead, I think at ito yung hinahanap ko, Pinky, na multilateral approach to our foreign relations. We should focus our efforts on more joint naval exercises, more joint patrols, even joint trainings of our troops through these multilateral partnerships, not only with the US, not only ideally also with China eventually if she finally treats us with mutual respect, but also starting in our own backyard within the ASEAN, with the Quad, and with other naval powers of the world. And I say the world deliberately because this region is crucial to the stability and even the economic prosperity of the entire world. Hindi lang ang nakataya dito ay ang US o ang China o tayo lamang. So we should look at the whole international community, call on it to band together, call on more countries to band together to preserve stability, to uphold a rules-based process, even with regards our conflicts, and of course, to uphold peace in the world.
So in summary though, to maybe summarize your response, do we need these EDCA sites or not? Your response is?
My response is there could have been alternatives, especially that the whole technology even of warfare has developed. It's not landlocked anymore. The whole technology of peacekeeping has also been enhanced in the waters. And of course, nasa interes natin na wag magkaroon ng kaguluhan, anumang kaguluhan dito sa teritoryo natin, ni sa Taiwan, just to say, the Philippines is a sovereign country. We get to determine what is best in our national interest, not for China, not for the United States. Yun din dapat yung pangunahing konsiderasyon sa pagdesisyon sana dito sa additional EDCA sites. And of course, we have no territorial interests in Taiwan or in the greater South China Sea. And unlike China, no, outside of the West Philippine Sea, wala tayong intensyon na pilitin ang ibang mga bansa to surrender their territorial claims. So moving forward, despite the fact na nagdagdag ng mga land-based EDCA sites, I still think it is in our better, greater, longer-term interest, Pinky, na maghahanap ng isang concrete expression of multilateral foreign relations, especially on the waters in and beyond the West Philippine Sea, in the greater South China Sea. That will better serve Filipino and even regional and global interests.
Senator, I was asking that again because I do remember in the past you were saying that if there are going to be new EDCA sites, it's important that the residents and the LGU have to be asked. Kailangan malaman ano yung take nila dito. Governor Mamba of Cagayan has already expressed his opposition, but he still says at the end of the day, it's really the president's call. So, advantages and disadvantages now. Now that there will be 2 EDCA sites in Cagayan. Sabihin lang natin, siguro in terms of relief operations, humanitarian efforts, malaki hong sigurong tulong ito for Cagayan and Isabela, especially because they are normally or regularly battered by a series of typhoons.
And there's the additional new EDCA site in Palawan, Pinky. And
Balabac.
of course, sino ba naman ang tatanggi sa dagdag na tulong sa relief, sa rehabilitation, sa disaster response? But as I was saying, even during the briefing with the DND and AFP at kahit mismo sa Senate Committee hearing, all those partnerships on humanitarian and disaster resilience efforts could have continued even under the original or old EDCA arrangements. At siguradong pwede nating isulong sa pamamagitan ng mga multilateral security relationships, hindi lamang sa lupa at hindi sa pamamagitan lamang ng mga physical sites, pero on the waters through joint or through naval partnerships with the US, yes, with the other and with the other naval powers, and as I mentioned, the Quad and the ASEAN. So those advantages, I still believe we could have secured through other means.
Without the additional
as for disadvantages, I hope na pag-usapan yun sa anumang konsultasyong ginanap with the LGUs in Cagayan, Isabela, and Palawan.
So when we talk about possible disadvantages, or at least what's come out lately, China's foreign ministry spokesperson Mao Ning was saying basically it's the U.S. pursuit, these EDCA sites, of selfish interest that could lead to more tension and less stability in the region. So I want to go back to a number of the issues that you said and identified earlier. I guess the point is, how can the Philippines actually really maximize the additional EDCA sites, or let's just say the 9 EDCA sites, and at the same time rather protect ourselves from possible conflict, between the United States and China?
Well, first of all, Pinky, it's funny to hear the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson complaining about selfish interests. Dahil kung sino ang naging selfish nitong nakaraang mga taon in terms of expelling Filipino fisherfolk from our own territorial waters, dredging up our seabed to create and then militarize artificial islands in Philippine territory, harassing our Navy and Coast Guard and BFAR, di walang iba kundi sa China. And let me not even speak of her actions vis-a-vis Taiwan, which we also respect, whose sovereignty we also respect as part of our region. So as far as maximizing any promised benefits for the additional EDCA sites and then protecting ourselves from any possible additional tensions and conflict. So dito nga pumapasok, Pinky, our standing up for our sovereign rights as a sovereign nation against the backdrop of our long and colorful and even painful history as a former colony of the United States. Importante na sa konteksto nitong pagdagdag palalo ng mga EDCA sites that we strive for a relationship that is more between equals than in the historical past, na makita din natin na may pagrespeto sa atin ang Estados Unidos pati sa mga issue na napakasakit sa atin dati, the issues of human rights, the issues of respect for our women, lalo na dun sa mga area sa palibot ng dating mga base militar at ngayon ng mga EDCA sites and such. And talagang yung avoiding, and not just avoiding, Pinky, pero sana helping to prevent the escalation of tensions and even conflict in our region. Kung dati merong tinawag sa isang giyera na tinutulan ng marami sa atin dito sa rehiyon ng West Asia, no, ng Middle East, there was something called the Coalition of the Willing. Sana posibleng magbuo ng Coalition of the Unwilling dito sa ASEAN o sa Asia Pacific. Countries who would like to help de-escalate, cool the tensions between the US and China, especially around Taiwan, upholding the right of the Taiwanese people to live in peace and under the political system that they determine democratically. At para hindi magkaroon intentionally or just as bad accidentally the outbreak of any hot conflict around Taiwan, in the West Philippine Sea, or in the greater South China Sea.
So President Bongbong Marcos was already saying we need not worry. It was yesterday or the other day when he said basically kung wala naman daw susugod sa atin, hindi kailangan mag-alala dahil hindi naman natin sila lalabanan. We're just basically defending our territory. Is this enough assurance?
Well, magandang assurance siya o magandang position siyang sinabi ni Presidente in the sense that it's faithful to the constitutional mandate of peace as the instrument of national policy or the abandonment of war as an instrument of national policy. Kaya magandang prinsipyong iyon na sinabi ni Presidente. Pero Pinky, sa konteksto ngayon na dalawang higante ang nagigirian, no? The United States and China are like the elephants, not in the room, but in that old saying na kapag dalawang elepante daw nagsagupaan, baka mapisa na lang yung mga damo sa paa nila. So in the world of real politics that all of us who work in government are obliged to study more and always, mahirap kung magkaroon ng sadya o aksidenteng pagsibol ng labanan dito sa ating rehiyon, whether anywhere in the West Philippine Sea or the greater South China Sea or Taiwan, napakahirap na hindi maipit o hindi obligahin whether ng US or ng China na madamay, no, or pilitin nila ang bawat isang mas maliit na bansa na pumanig. We don't want to arrive at that situation.
But it's important.
Pinky. We shouldn't wait for it to happen, but actively try to prevent it.
Ang usapan ho dito, Senator Risa, is yung sinabi niyong sadya o aksidente. Intended or unintended.
The best we can do is to keep on communicating both to China and the US that we want a peaceful, if not resolution of the conflict, then at the very, very least, no, status quo, continue expressing to them na kasi yung aksidente nga hindi naman natin nasa control natin. Either of the two big nations could also say it's not completely within their control if an accident should happen. At alam naman natin yung mga aksidente, minsan may mga aksidente na aksidente talaga o kaya sadyang aksidente. And perhaps most importantly, beyond our communications to the two giant countries, again, as an early expression of the multilateral foreign relations that I hope we as the Philippines can explore, can promote, can discuss and arrive at starting with our like-minded ASEAN neighbor countries. Sana may proactive na effort on the part of as many of us smaller countries in this region as possible para sabihin ayaw talaga natin ng gera dito. War is such a thing of the past, Pinky, and we'd like to keep it that way. Yung anumang mga political at diplomatic quarrels or even fights natin, let us resolve it on those planes at mas i-secure natin ang economic, ecological, at saka diplomatic well-being ng Pilipinas unang-una at ng ating rehiyon at ng mundo.
We need to take a very short break. When we return, we'll talk about the hearing, the first hearing on the murder of Governor Degamo. When we come back, please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Senator Risa Hontiveros. So, Senator, the Senate is set to conduct its first hearing on the murder, the assassination of Governor Degamo. This will be the Committee on Public Works and Dangerous Drugs, I believe, headed by Senator Bato de la Rosa. Number one, when will this happen?
Oh my gosh, I have to quickly look at my calendar, but very, very soon.
This week.
And not a moment too soon, Pinky, dahil isa ako sa mga senador na talagang kinukundena itong walang habas na pagpaslang kay Governor Roel. So Senate Resolution number 518, that's mine, is one of the resolutions that will be heard by the Senate Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs. And it calls for that investigation on that brazen killing of Governor Roel and several
others
government officials, elected public officials. It's really imperative, Pinky, that we look not just into the immediate circumstances of this killing of Governor Roel and the other officials, but the causes and the drivers of these incidents. Para we always say in our resolutions in aid of legislation so that we can institute the necessary legislative and then handing over to the executive measures para mapigilang mangyari muli yung mga ganito. The particular unique angle I want to look into in our Senate hearing is kung may kinalaman ba yung desisyon ng COMELEC na siya, si Gov. Roel ang iluklok bilang gobernador ng Negros Oriental pagkatapos, hindi bago pagkatapos idiskwalipika ang boto ng isang nuisance candidate. The question being, could this slate of Governor Roel have been avoided if the nuisance candidate had been declared such earlier on, and if the then first proclaimed governor was allowed to occupy the gubernatorial post. So it's a matter also of the sense of urgency and the timing of the action of the constitutional body charged to conduct not just free, fair, and honest, but peaceful elections. Peaceful, lagi nating sinasabing election-related violence. Pero paano kung matagal na actually natapos yung election, pero yung ugat nung karahasan is still also electorally, politically related? And maybe the question could be asked about some of the other officials who were slain recently. Cagayan Vice Mayor Almeda, Maguindanao del Sur, former Vice Mayor former Vice Mayor Amat of Quezon, former Vice Mayor Sulit of Lobo, and former Mayor Rosita Furigay of Lamitan City.
Right. I was looking into your Senate Resolution 518, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it just does not want to look into who killed, who masterminded the assassination of Governor Degamo. It talked about what are the reasons. It talks about number one. Let's look into the series of attempted assassinations of other personalities, local government officials, as you had mentioned a while ago. But it's also important what you said a while ago. We need to find out what is the reason for this. Are government institutions doing the right things? Are they doing the right ways in order to avoid such incidents from happening, etc.? But what's also important here is what you mentioned a while ago with COMELEC. Just to add context to what you had earlier mentioned, Senator Risa, no? Nilukluk kasi si Governor Degamo ng COMELEC after Governor Pride Henry Teves because they counted the votes, tapos may nuisance candidate nga na Roel, no? Iba naman yung spelling ng Roel doon sa Degamo. Eventually binigay yon kay Governor Degamo, tapos siya po yung nilagay na governor. But what should have been the solution here? Kasi if you're saying that dapat siguro, from my understanding, niresolve to ng COMELEC prior to, para sakaling hindi na humantong dito. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. That is what I'm saying, Pinky. Dapat ang naglanding lang ng mga pangalan sa balota na pagpipilian ng mga botante ay yung sa pagkaalam ng COMELEC, qualified na tumakbo bilang candidate. And qualified, ibig sabihin seryoso, exact opposite ng nuisance. Ano yung epekto kung tinanggal ng maaga yung nuisance candidate? Posibleng, kahit mainit naman talaga ang politika sa Pilipinas hanggang sa ngayon, unfortunately, posible kayang nabawasan ng 1 degree ang init ng temperatura ng politikang iyan sa eleksyon na iyan. Posible kayang at the very outset ay kung natanggal yung nuisance candidate na halos, except for one letter, halos kapangalan ni Gov. Roel Degamo, kung natanggal siya at yung mga boto na di umano ay napunta sa kanya, ay napunta sa ibang kandidato, whether Gov. Roel or other candidates, then the outcome could have been what was achieved by COMELEC's, in a way, late action na eventually naupo si Gov. Roel, perhaps with 1 degree less of the heat of the tensions, of the maybe resentment, maybe of the anger na alam natin sa history ng mga political assassinations mula pa siguro ng panahon ni Julius Caesar. Itong mga emosyon, hindi lang ng mga leader, pati ng mga tao, ay ingredient sa recipe, unfortunately, ng electoral and political violence. And not just on the day of the election, not just soon after, but perhaps yung temperatura ngayon ay kumukulo in the months previously. And ang COMELEC bilang isa sa mahalagang constitutional bodies natin would do an even greater service by adding an ingredient of coolness.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there, Senator. No, but this is also another take that needs to be addressed. Sabi nyo nga I guess eye-opener. It shouldn't even be an eye-opener. I guess for some, that was the obvious already. Hindi ho ba? Isang letter dun sa pangalan. Okay. But this is not the first time that Negros Oriental made headlines. There's been headlines in the past. There's been loose talk all around. I guess what I want to find out is, bakit ngayon lang na it's almost you see a whole government approach due to the assassination, the murder of Governor Degamo? Dahil ba nakita sa CCTV? Dahil ba mahal na mahal si Governor Degamo? Dahil ba it was so brazen? Nakita yung, yung papaano lumusog dun sa bahay? Again, it's not the first time that they made headlines. Bakit ngayon lang siguro nabigyan to ng puwang o ng pansin?
Well, talagang fair tanungin bakit ngayon lang, or is this too little too late? We really hope not. Sigurado isang elemento yung mukhang malaking pagmamahal ng mga constituents ni Gov. Roel sa kanya. But indeed, there are elements of this killing as well that shock even a public na pwede sanang namanhid na sa ganitong klaseng mga pamamaril o pagpapatay. Halimbawa, bakit nakasuot ng pixelized fatigues yung mga bumaril kay Gov. Roel. And so late though this may be on the heels of earlier killings, I hope that yung gagawin naming hearing ng Senate committee will be able to come out not just with the very strong findings that are already coming in through the CCTV video and events since during this recent or this ongoing Senate recess, events in terms of the law enforcement operations. I hope that we will be able to come out with very strong recommendations that will be implemented fully and well by the executive. At sana nga mapakinggan din ng mahalagang constitutional body ng COMELEC, especially as we prepare later this year for the barangay and SK elections, and then the following years, the midterm and general elections.
Senator, I just want to interject as a last point because I need to go on a break. I want to talk about human trafficking still. It's also important, Di Huba, that once and, well, I'm not sure if it's fair to say once and for all, but really seriously look into gun for hire syndicates and private armies. But I need to take a very short break. We'll talk about human trafficking when we return. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Senator Risa Hontiveros. Before human trafficking, let's talk about this sugar smuggling. Just very quickly, maybe just a line. No? So government already said that they will sell so many metric tons of smuggled sugar in Kadiwa stores at 70 pesos per kilo. Just quickly, is this the right approach? And is 70 pesos a fair price?
Okay, one sentence. It's not the right approach. Pag smuggled, usually kinikumpiska yan ng customs and either returned to sender or destroyed. Pero kakapanghinayang sirain, destroy kasi kulang na kulang ang asukal. Semicolon, 70 pesos? Lumabas na nga sa aming pagkuwenta. It's only 28 pesos per kilo in Thailand. So ang layo po ng agwat ng 20 at 70.
So,
Let's do the
follow
math.
up. Magkano ho dapat ibenta dun sa Kadiwa stores kung ganun po?
Una naming kwinenta when this whole 440,000 metric tons volume came to attention. At that volume, kayang ibaba ang presyo ng asukal sa Pilipinas kung properly imported to 50 to 60 pesos only, 50 plus pesos,
All
which
right.
sounds like the midpoint, right? Between 28 and 70.
Apo. Last question on human trafficking because there was a report very recently that about 6 Filipinos have arrived in the Philippines from Laos where they were trafficked. Ano po. And at that same day, I believe, I think I read this from the Inquirer that the Southern Police District arrested actually 2 Chinese nationals naman po that tinraffic ng Vietnamese woman to work here in the Philippines, but instead of patrabahuhin ho siya dito, tinreten po yung kanyang pamilya na magbayad ng ransom. Kung hindi, ibebenta siya sa isang offshore gaming company. Just how are we doing so far? Do you still continue to get, are there still many Filipinos asking help from your office, Senator?
Yes, tuwing meron kaming binubunyag na human trafficking, una sa Myanmar, tapos sa Cambodia, ngayon ito yung Laos angle, may nakakabalita na victim survivor din or nandun pa and humihingi ng tulong. The Bureau of Immigration itself has urged Filipinos seeking work abroad to be extra vigilant to avoid falling into the hands of syndicates in Asia. Pero ang hirap, Pinky, we take one step forward and then may tatapik sa balikat natin. We have to look back. We're taking 2 steps backward as well. Ito ngayon, hindi na lang human trafficking palabas.
Correct.
Human trafficking
Papunta dito.
Dito sa Pilipinas, bibiktimahin ang ibang Asyano. So, double time tayo kailangan.
Okay. You're right, no? That's sana we had more time to talk about that kasi we were very focused obviously on Filipinos being trafficked abroad. And then here is now, sila naman po, yung foreign nationals dinadala naman po dito for human
So
trafficking.
let's overhaul the PI, Pinky. Mukhang may contacts talaga sa loob, going both ways.
Right. Okay. Deputy Senate Minority Leader Risa Hontiveros, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.